Hi, this is Shivam from Design Origins Club. Recently, we invited Vikas Raj Yadav for an interactive masterclass on Rive design tool. Vikas has been doing great work using Rive, and it's a great tool for doing animation, motion design. And these days, as a product designer, it is expected that you can do work end to end, from working on the initial ideation to making wireframes to the high fidelity visual design. It's also a great add on if you can create interactive prototypes, animation, and Rive have become one of the most popular tool for using for doing the same. And Vikas has mastered the tool very well. So I hope you enjoy the session. It's a recording from our live session. It's an initiative by Design Origins Club. We do this session free of cost because we believe in sharing this high quality knowledge with everyone. And feel free to share with this anyone that might benefit from this. Okay, cool.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone. And first of all, special thanks to Vikas for doing this live session. I have been watching your, work over a long time. Like, great work, man. Really appreciate you sharing your time with us for teaching the Rive Masterclass. And this is the initiative by Design Originals Club. It's run by Paras and me. We keep on doing this session. A few weeks back, we did one with Pratik Gupta, who is a design manager at Flipkart, around the design hiring thing at Unicorn. Before that, we did a workshop on building with AI for designers. Also, in the coming weeks, we're doing around whiteboarding from someone from Spotify and Coinbase. So we keep on doing this session. So if you want to join us, you can join our club. I will put the link also in the description. Now, it's great to have all of you here. I hope it is valuable and we all could have a great time. Thanks again to Vikas. So over to Vikas now. Like, feel free to take over this.
Hey guys, can you hear me by the way? Perfect. Uh, hello guys, my name is Vikas Raj Yadav. I'm a self-taught product designer for about a decade now, and I've been doing this I've been interactions actually, or let's say motion for 12 years before when I was a designer, right? So I started like doing the animation on Flash in around 2012 or something, right? And I started fell in love with the animation. I really wanted to be a game designer or a game developer of sort, but as you know, I'm like have changed the trajectory. Over the years, I have used After Effects, Flash, and I still do use After Effects, but I stumbled upon Rive back in 2018. Before that, this tool was called Flare, and I happened to like stumble upon this, and I was working on this a small problem statement. In fact, the product called PTM Postpaid, which was a lending product, right? And I was figuring out some concepts around how do I even create categories in the user segment. So I mean, in fact, let me like share your screen so that you'll be able to understand it better. Wait a second, let me share it. Share the screen. Oh, is it visible? Yeah. Can you? Yes. So let me drag it this actually. So this was the one second. Let me. So I'm using two. This was a product actually I was doing for Paytm called Postpaid, right? And the reason of me like looking at like right now using Rive also is because I had this like concepts I did for Postpaid where so if you don't know exactly what Postpaid is, I think it's similar to what BNPL as a category is, where you spend something you'll get a credit, small credit. But we wanted to like do we want to create people we want to create a credit system where even if you don't have a credit score, we could give you some credit limit, and based on how you used it, we'll increase your spend limit and increase your credit score as well, right? So this was the concept actually I did. I wanted to. So if you look at this is actually a simple spend limit, available limit concept. I wanted to categorize those and give it a metaphor of like water bottle. And I did one experimentation with XD, and which is good. Everybody liked it. So imagine like you have a spend limit of 500 rupees, and I wanted to give a metaphor of a small bottle, like a 10 rupees bottle. And as you grow and exhaust those limit, the bottle will get bigger. So like 20-liter bottle or a bigger one. So that was the idea, right? But this is again in a conceptualization phase, right? Lottie wasn't that much, capable, and this was supposed to be dynamic, right? So how would I able to even do this, right? So that's why we have to go away with this whole concept. They do like the stakeholder do like the whole container thingy. So the idea was to like create this section as a liquid kind of a metaphor. As you pay your spend limit, the blue container will shrink, similar to what you have in as a concept in a water bottle. But this B was not implemented the way it was intended, right? Because of some tech constraint and tools not being there, right? It went live with some kind of like a in between saying that we wanted to like create it later on the stage, right? So some technical constraint and all. So that's how I actually stumbled upon Rive, and I understand the whole the importance of using tools, right, like Rive, right? So what it does actually, it gives you like if this being was possible being in 2018, I would have been able to make this concept live and up and running with very less cost and time and like even constraints was not there, right? So that's how I why I use Rive. So let's start with Rive only. I use Rive. How many of you have already used Rive, by the way, before? Can I get a whole perfect? Okay, let me. Okay, no. Okay, wait. Let me close this one. So Rive in general is actually similar to what Figma does. I mean, if you look at the what how Figma looks and Rive looks are almost the same. But Rive has let me start like with like okay, any prerequisites? No, haven't used Rive earlier. Perfect. Okay, let's start with like the 101 with Rive. So Rive is like is pretty straightforward. So when you go on Rive, one second. Let me start by like creating a file. So you create a new file jitter. Okay, it'll ask you exactly what kind of file would you be needing, right? So when you tap on a plus new file, you'll get a like a width and a height. I usually use 375 by 375 or 375 by 18112, depend upon what kind of product I'm doing. I usually do most of the mobile products, so I always create 375 by 375, and then I create an artboard. So I think let me start by doing a okay. Have you used Rive? Correct. 37 people have tried it. 52 haven't tried it. So let me like start like with like a very one-on-one approach. So when you create a new Rive file, let's create it. Let's rename it to Design Originals Club. You see when you select on the left side of the screen, you have file structure, but again, similar shortcuts, select as V. How many of you, by the way, tried using, like, how many of you are familiar with Figma actually? So that I'll understand. Okay, Figma, very familiar with Figma? All of us at least. Perfect. So I think I'm understanding, like, let me like skip something which is there on the Figma so that you'll have like, so when you select, there's actually a move tool, rotation tool, scale tool. Again, you can create artboards. Layout, we are not going to touch it because layout is a little bit is similar to what auto layout is, but it's a little different than in Rive. Again, you have a pen tool, rectangle, ellipse, triangle. You can create general shape. Then again, you have a text. Bones is actually it's a very good tool, but it's mostly towards animators who wanted to do character animations. Some of the things which you can like also create controls using Bone. You might have seen one animation where a recent where there's actually this I forgot the name. There was a dynamic cub, I don't know, Almira or something, where she was actually doing it with the Bone. So I mean, you can use it as a control. But for this particular possible to go into light mode in Rive will make it easier to see things in the screen share. Okay, I don't think they have tried. I mean, all I could do is actually basically make it white, the background. Is it better? Okay, let me do one thing. Let me do display a little bit too small. Is it better? The scale part? Is it visible? I think I decreased the resolution for this one. Perfect. So Rive, whenever you create a Rive file, you get an artboard, right? And you on the left you have I mean, there's a new tab called data now introduced here in this one. We'll touch upon it a little bit. Very small uh, people will be able to understand data. If you're from engineering background, you might be able to understand data, but we'll touch upon it like later at this stage. So there's actually a hierarchy, and then you have an assets, and then there's actually design mode and any mode, right? Any solid Figma designer here looking. Anyways, so there are two modes in Rive, which is which is gonna be very much important for us. There's one called design mode and there's one called animate mode. Let me make it white as well, or it's a little gray. Okay, this is white. Let me make it gray. Perfect. So in Rive, we have a design mode and animate mode. I'm assuming a lot of people might copy paste or is looking out for like, how do I copy and paste from Figma? We'll do that in the second, little later in stage in this workshop. But So let me start like with like a little bit how do you create a basic animation slash interaction for with Rives. What we're gonna do is basically create a rectangle, right? And then similar to like you have a color, right? This color rectangle on the left. This is rectangle red, or let's say simply rectangle, right? Perfect. I'm assuming a lot of you have uh, like gone through Rive tutorial, or no, have not gone through Rive tutorial. It will be easier. Let me like start assuming that you haven't gone through the Rive 101. When you select Rive, any kind of a like a object or anything in the artboard, you'll see this all those properties on the right. As an if I press anything which you see on the right, you can actually animate it, right? Create interaction around it, right? So whatever I do here, when I go back and tap on animate mode, when I press shift, one second, sorry, option, you see this option becomes violet, right? You can actually go and create keyframes around it. But perfect. Let's not go and see the animation part. Uh, what's so? How many of you guys, by the way, have a little understanding of how a timeline-based tool works, right? Like Premiere Pro, like like After Effects or Jitter or wherever you have a keyframes, right? Timeline-based tools like AI, right? After Effects and all. Perfect. Let me do a little bit small comparison of how to actually think from a point of view of a timeline-based tool. So let's say if I do the same thing, right? If I press a rectangle, right? One second, create a rectangle, make it fill color to red. So what happened in any kind of these kind of a tool, no? You kind of create keyframes, right? You like create a keyframes. Let's say if I have to have a position here, and after a while you go and then change this keyframe to this, and it will automatically play like it'll do whatever you intended it to do, right? Perfect. But in Rive, this is actually a little bit different, and it's possible, but you should not think from like this mental model, right? So you have a rectangle on first. This is called rectangle, which is a red. I mean, this is pretty much it. I mean, in assets, we can actually copy paste from Figma, so we're gonna be doing it later. But when you are actually thinking from as a designer, product designer, and I'm assuming most of you are actually a product designer here. Think of it like like how you do prototyping in Figma. A little bit slight change in terms of your mental model. So let me start with creating a simple basic interaction here or animation here. I tap on animate mode. But whenever you go on animate mode, a lot of things becomes a little tricky. How many of you actually get scared at this point of time when actually you tap on animate and then you start seeing this thing, right? Perfect. A lot of actually have a little, right? Perfect. Interesting. So, I mean, don't worry. It's actually is not that complicated. It's actually it takes a little bit time for you to adjust and the understanding, not as intimidating as AE, right? Actually, After Effects is also not that complicated. It has so many options. That's why you get overwhelmed. Okay, let me start like taking you through a little by little so that you'll start understanding what is the bottom section is, right? So whenever you tap on animate, Rive comes with like a one state machine, one timeline, and it you see this arrow and you understand what it is, and there's actually a layer option, right? So okay, let's start by like let's start by simplifying it, right? So what a timeline is, right? When I tap on timeline, you see whatever you see in After Effects, right? This is similar to what After Effects gives you. Like imagine if I delete this, right? So this is actually what you get in Drive, right? So this is exactly a timeline, right? But why this is actually connected to a state machine, right? And that's what the USP of that's why this is a USP of Rive is because Rive is not a animation tool. So in After Effects, you only have one trigger, which is like when you play it and it actually plays whatever the animation you have intended it to do, right? Is basically think of it like you have when you how many of you have tried prototyping in Figma, by the way? Perfect. You must so you are aware about so you all are aware about uh, triggers and action points and like mouse hover and all, right? Perfect. So imagine you doing the same thing. Let me open Figma actually so that you'll be able to understand it better. Figma, and we'll try to take this whole mental model from here to there. Sorry, I'm using it free. Okay, so let's see, Figma 375 by 375. I have a red rectangle, which is the similar to what you see in Figma. Figma has similar. So whatever you see on the right, this is a red rectangle, right? How would you create a prototype here? Usually what happens, you go and you trap it here and you say, hey, on the tap of this, I want to make this yellow, right? Or whatever color we wanted to do, right? Purple, right? Okay. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to prototype mode. It says interaction, right? And I tap on it. It says on click, which is at your triggers, and you take an action, whatever, like navigate to, back to. Usually what happens when you tap on click? Okay. So now when I go here to here, you say on tap. Okay. You say on tap of this. Why I'm saying drag? One second. On click, navigate to frame 2. Animation should be smart animate. This is what you see, right? And again, you go back here, you again do this, on click, navigate to this. Perfect. When I play this, or let me do shift space, I'm assuming this is what's intending. Quite simple, understanding, very much easy. Now Rive has a little bit complication here. And why it get complicated is because you have all those triggers already baked into the in the Figma file, right? And you just like select whatever the action intended there, and then it's there already, right? So what if uh, and also if you have to like change the duration, you select this and this. It's similar to what you see in Drive. This arrow, when you tap on arrow, whatever you see, okay, there's actually on click, navigate to this, smart animate, ease in and out, ease in duration. It's very simple. Now let me like show you how it's visible in Rive, and we can take it from there. So imagine this is Figma. You see whatever you see, and then the duration, you wanted to make the duration to 600, and then you do 600, and you have this ease in, ease out, ease in back. This is your curve, which is called interpolation in a lot of cases. And then you have smart animate, move in, whatever. Right? It's similar in Drive, but you won't be able to like get it. So what happened when you see a state machine, in a state machine, there's an arrow with an entry, and you said on timeline 1. It's imagine simple. Think of it like, it's as simple as in Figma, but because there's a multiple thing you can do, that's why even when you tap on play, there's actually a invisible state machine there, because you already have selected the first frame as your main frame. It takes you there at frame 1, and that's what it opens, right? In Rive, it's the same. On the entry of this particular state machine or this animation, where would you want to use your first frame to be? Your first frame of what your first state to be. So now this is the timeline, which is if I play this, on this one, nothing happens, right? It's as simple as it is, right? Now let me tell you why actually Rive is better, or as a an interaction tool, or like your is that when I go on timeline, right? I select this. Whatever I'm gonna be keeping as a keyframe, you'll be able to see it on the. You'll be able to like. Okay, let me like put it right. So I wanted to like make this red to blue. It's getting a little bit cramped because I have to like decrease this resolution of the screen. But so on this first timeline, I say this is a red. Let's keep it like frame for the sake of the comparison. This is a frame 1, right? So whatever you see Figma, this is actually frame 1. This is a property of red, right? And now another one, we'll duplicate it. This is frame 2. This rectangle, let me change it to blue. Perfect. State, play, nothing happens, right? Nothing happens. So if I take this example of like, say you have a frame 1, then you have a frame 2, you have to you have connected this using this simple interaction, but in Drive, you have to create it by yourself. So you go on frame 1, you drag frame 2, there's a frame 2 exist, which is have a blue color rectangle. Now you have to connect it. Similar like you have a like arrow and then you delete it. You just have to connect it because Figma is very intuitive. It gives you this, and already there's a trigger and there's actually animation, there's a curve, then duration. It's there also. When I tap it here, you see this is the one. It's similar. So you have a duration. What's the duration? 600 ms. Perfect. You see a duration 600 ms. There you have ease in, ease out. So what did Figma did actually? They baked in the curves to this ease in, ease out, and ease in, ease. So their value already they have pre-created in terms of so if you see ease in, ease out, custom bezier. When you see custom bezier, see this is actually what you actually are seeing in the interpolation cycle. So this is what custom bezier actually is. It's basically you change the value, and it automatically will be able to give you the same animation which you'll see here. So if I copy paste the same thing here, it'll you see the bezier curve and this bezier curve is almost looking the same, right? So Figma made it be easy for you to like select and pick those curves. So if I like ease in, ease out, you don't see actually there's no value, but technically there is actually a bezier curve. The value is there, but you won't see it because they want you to see it. It's because it will be easier, right? So now ease in, ease out. This is what custom bezier looks like. And this, if you see custom bezier, if I move it, they see the speed, right? There's actually preview there, right? Done. I don't think so. You should see this thing. Perfect. Let's go back. So what happened? Frame 1, frame 2. it'll take 600 ms. So I've decided like, okay, this will take 600 ms from this to this with the interpolation of this. And what will happen if I just press play? Happen, guys? Were you able to understand it? What happened? Perfect. Interesting. So now this is, I'm just playing it, right? It goes to frame one, similar to like similar. So when you go on tap back, again, back. Okay. Again, we wanted to see it like this. I mean, I'll paste the same basic curve there. But here's the catch now, and that's become tricky now. See, Rive is basically a little bit different than Figma because it's built on very much instructional based user experience, right? When I say what I say instructional based is basically it works on instruction, right? It's like similar to you have checkpoints in games, right? You have to define logics with the animation, right, with the interaction also. So if you see this one, right, if I press play there, it's moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? Because in Figma, you see there's actually a trigger already set there, right? It says on click only do that. Apart from that, nothing, do nothing, right? It's like it's there, right? So say only so there's actually a trigger already defined here in Figma, right? When you create an interaction. Whereas in Rive, you haven't defined that interaction yet, right? So that's why when I tap it, and that's why it becomes complicated, is because when you create this lines and then you create it back, when I press play, it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you see on the right side, which is a very important by the factor, you always should see the console on the right side of it. It's a very instructional. So it'll, for example, if I delete this one, right? Can I create a clearer this console? Nothing. So when I go on console and when I press play, you should see this actually. If I'm able to zoom it, I'm not sure. Okay, I can't zoom it. On the right side of the console, you see press play. This is what happened, right? Entry, which is the first state, entry to frame one, and then frame one to frame two, and it stopped, right? So it is similar to what Figma is saying that, hey, when I tap it here, uh, when I tap it here, you go to the state and stay. And because there's a trigger, there's a check. Only if I tap it here, then it moves there, right? So now when I go back here and then drag it there, it actually is moving back and forth because there is no checks or there is no trigger we have defined it yet. Are you guys able to understand it? How did you create the frame one and frame two? Interesting. Okay. Is it are you guys able to should I give you again how I made it? Okay, let me finish it and then I'll show you exactly. Or I think do one thing. State machine, press play. Anyways, let me give you, let me make it let me give the whole session, give me this one and then I'll take you the Q&A later. So in Figma, you have actually triggers. We haven't defined the triggers yet. Actually, what triggers actually is in Rive is basically input. Basically, there's actually a trigger. It's a trigger which says tap on red, and there's another trigger called tap on blue. Yes, kind of a log history. Yes, I mean it's there in the Figma as itself. Like it's a very code-based thing. You don't see it in Figma because it's a design tool. They just removed it because of the complication. I mean you won't need it there. But yes, it's basically kind of a log history. It's like what's happening one by one by one. Okay. Anyways, so let me create. So we have created triggers here. So okay. Let's say in the so there in Figma it says on click, right? This is a trigger, and on click is basically one kind of event, right? When you tap on it, it changes to red, right? What we're gonna do is we're gonna be creating an event. 1 second, they actually have changed a little bit UI, so it's a little confusing right now, but let me show you exactly. So, interesting. So is it too small for you to see on the bottom of it? Anyways, so perfect. So I think let me show you exactly how I made the query about how do you actually create states. I deleted this one. There's actually frame one, which is actually a timeline, nothing but this. So there's no frame concept. This is basically a timeline, which actually I'm calling it frame. So in Figma, you have frames. In Rive, you have timelines. There's difference in terms of your. So timeline is basically Figma. I have a frame, so it's a static 1 pixel. There's nothing like you. There's only one state. It doesn't move, right? But in Rive, you have timelines basically. So there's still a state, but you can actually move it in between. So how I did is basically I created a duplicate frame 2. I just duplicated it, made it frame 2 because I've made a duplicate. But you can do this also when you go and tap and then create timeline. It creates a very empty timeline, right? So you can actually make it frame 2, and then you can actually assign the color, right? But this is actually an approach which I would not recommend it because just like in Figma, you have to have a like a some similar keyframe or let's say value in the other second in the second keyframe or second state or timeline. Otherwise, it does this actually. So if similar to like telling it key, this is rectangle and this is called rectangle one. So if I play here, you won't see the animation. It actually takes you like, it's a fades. I mean, if I change it, let me rotate it actually so that it fades, right? So ideally it should move. This is actually, it's not able to understand that this is actually the same rectangle. So that's why it's like a fading it out, right? It's same thing in if I press frame one. So I just wanted to duplicate it so that it remains with the keyframe there, and I just change it to blue, right? So like that. Similar frame one. So see, it deletes the remain frame two. It goes there, press frame one, and then goes back. Okay, so if I create a trigger and then I press select, and if trigger is being one selected, then play this with the 100 ms. If it says it tap on red and then go back, then again I create a trigger which is called tap on blue, and then if I say if tap on blue exists, see now nothing happens, right? It's similar to as Figma. Guys, is it too small for you to see? Frame 2, frame 2, 1, frame 1, frame 1, 2. Can you see it? Is it better? I mean, can you zoom it also? Yeah, perfect. So earlier what it used to happen, no? It actually, you can create events from here. They actually did what they did actually. They created the logics of events to the bottom of it. So there's actually, they created conditional statements there. Whereas like if else statement, you might have seen it in advanced prototyping in Figma, right? So they actually have updated this, and it's a little bit tricky, but trust me, you'll love it. So I have done exactly the same how it intended in Figma. Figma mein you have tap, this will trigger when you select it. This is a trigger on click, and then you have selected this go to this frame 2, right? So when I press play, you see this, it stays there at red, right? Because we have introduced a logic which is called an input. Only when an input happens, when I tap on blue, then it moves to the frame 2. So like, see, if you see this, if I press tap on red, there's a tap happen, it moves to blue, and then it stays there on the frame 2. See, on this says tap on red fired, frame 1 to frame 2. And now if I say tap on blue, okay, tap on blue fired, frame 2 to frame 1. So far so good. Is it how is it a little complicated? Let me know if you think like are you guys able to understand it better? So take mental model of Figma. So Figma gives you pre-baked triggers, right? But they are limited in terms of I mean, it's good to have it, but in Rive you have to bake in, right? So we created one trigger, so they're actually, but right now what's happening, if I tap it here, it's not doing anything, right? Because when you create a trigger on click, you actually are creating a listener, right? With this rectangle, it's already clicked, it's already been there, pre-baked in Figma. But what happens in like, you have to create listeners in Rive, right? So there is actually a listener of, basically listener is basically a section where you do anything, like any kind of interaction. It detects what kind of interaction that you define also. Like say, if you have a listener, say tap, detect. Okay, let's keep it on. Okay, let's say tap on red. There's another listener called tap on blue. So the question is like, a lot of people must be thinking, oh, it's better to like create interaction in Rive in Figma versus like why I'm actually like right now doing so much work in terms of getting one interaction right in Rive. The reason is actually it becomes really easy for you because it's better to understand when to use Figma and when to use Rive and where to use Rive. So let me like give you like a little bit more understanding on in terms of why how to use Rive, right, and where. So we created listener, but so tap on red. This is your target. You select it. Okay, this is your target. On now, there's really a type of listeners you have. You have a click, pointer up, pointer down. It's similar to what you see in Figma. Hover up, hover down. But for this particular class, we'll say when you tap on. So when the listener would be when you click on that particular target, then you fire the what will happen. So when you tap on red, you have selected a tap on red. So there's really a firing of tap on red, which will take you to the frame 2. Again, when I tap on blue, you select a target, this rectangle you see on the here, and you see there's a target. When you click on it, what will happen? You'll select, because you're on the blue, tap on blue happen, and then when I play, tap on blue. So tap on blue fired, tap on blue fired. There's a listener and there is actually a input. Let's say, okay, let me change it. So change to blue. change to red. So far so good, guys. Okay, perfect. So now this is done. Now this is done, and you see this, why I feel like it's very good in terms of better than in Figma is because now it's very much straightforward. If I wanted to add a speed there, I'll say 450 ms. I could change the speed, I could change the curve, I could make it like a little bit more jumpy, which you might have seen it, right? There's actually spring which you get from Rive, right? I could actually say, so right now we had made this 400 ms. I could go make it 800 milliseconds, and the iteration is really fast, right? So now if I press play, everything is structured, but you won't see it because it's just like a color change, right? So now why Rive is good is basically when I go to frame one, ideally what happened for me to rotate it, no, I have to go and then do a keyframe somewhere on the in the middle of the keyframe, right? But what Rive does is basically it detects, and I think what you should also focus is like whatever you do as a property, you tap and see exactly. There's actually there's actually fill keyframe I did in the first frame one, and this list is fill one, right? So now if I want to rotate it, right, I have to give a keyframe of a rotation here, and I have to go back in the frame 2, and all I have to do is like give a keyframe of 180, or let's say 180, 270. So now everything is done, and then everything is like tested. Now when I press play, nothing happens. This is why Rive is better, right? So you see this one, it's moving, happening at the speed of light, right? Now I don't like the speed of it. Go back, it's too fast. Make it 100, 1000 ms, and this is make it 1000 ms. What if we change the shape? Yes, we can do that. Go to frame, you have a rectangle, but just make sure that you don't actually select somewhere in the middle. Try to always select the first keyframe. You just have to like try to select, like this is called playhead. Go to here and then select the very first frame, and then you have a scale 1 and scale X. Go to frame 2. Make sure you always see what are the keyframes there. So you'll say 100, 100, make it, I don't know, 50%, and then play. What is the file type in which these motions are implemented in code? So you have to, okay, let me do this Q&A later in the end. So this is one state, right? So now this is as simple as it is. So the best part about this is actually this is very simple. Now you're understanding it. Okay, you can do it in Figma. Why actually we are doing this much work in Rive? Because this is in Figma you're creating an artifacts, and here you can actually just like you implement this whole thing into and code, and it gets the job done. So my time is saved, right? For example, you can so for when I see Rive, when I see it's when I try to like create a something which is specifically in data visualization, I feel that you can create a lot of like good data visualization metrics. You can create credit scores. You can create a lot of things. But for this particular yes, you can embed Rive as a code. But for this particular class, let's so far so good. By the way, guys, are we guys able to like understand whatever I've showed it? Perfect, interesting. This is a very simple demonstration of uh, this this uh, Rive frame 1 frame 2 thingy. What best about is I can go and then select like I can change the when I say point enter, and then when I go back and then just say you want to click. Apart from that, you could just like pointer exit. No, I think pointer up, and then let me find that. So when you get a dot arrive like file as when you export it, right, and you can give it to people, and then they can do they can embed it in with while doing. They have to install packages for front end. There's actually a simple library for mobile. You have to install the packages there, so you can do that there also as well. But the best part about this is one example, right? You might have seen like, so based on the same thing, let's try to create a actually let's try to create something which has not been done there in the open tutorial library, right? How many have you seen like those 3D fake 3D kind of icon, or let's say any kind of a bottom micro interaction in the so many applications? You might have seen like people started creating those custom bottom navigation icons, right? Let's try to create that actually. So let's say, so same mental model. We'll try to click. There will be a state change, and then we'll try to create. When you tap it again, it goes back to the similar state, right? So let me give me some icon which you want to see. Okay, let me make it actually. Let's create what else? Okay, I've seen it somewhere. Let's not do this actually. Let me create a rectangle R, and then I made it this. Please make sure that you have a cake cart, home. I think let me okay, let me create a home actually. We can actually do create home. 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Big. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with the whole pen tool, right? Let me make it this. Let line center. Instead of like let's say fill, let me add a stroke. Make it red, gray, or let's make it gray. Perfect. Okay, naming is very important, by the way, guys. Whenever you're trying to create an interaction, no, always make sure that you guys are actually naming it really well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remove stroke. Make it red. Very ugly design, but we'll make it light gray. So this is my. Let's keep it. This is your house exterior, and this is called your door, right? This is one simple interaction. So now this is again. Let's keep it like name it. Why I'm not able to home inactive, right? And then this is perfect. Like we have made a base. For now, let's make it. Can I do a round rectangle here? Okay, so here's a good like a pro tip, right? You guys might have understand or you know about this thing called anchor point, which is not there in Figma, right? How many of you know about anchor point? Perfect. So in anchor point is basically is one of the, if not the best thing when you're animating something, right? In Figma, if you have to do rotation, it becomes very tricky and people do a lot of like trickery around it. So when you press Command G in Figma, you see that whenever you wanted to rotate something, it rotates from center of that particular container, right? It's similar, but in Rive. So let me do actually Command G. See, this is what you call anchor point in Rive, right? Whatever, if I rotate it, right? If you see this is moving, right? It's moving from center. Gives why Rive is better is like you can actually move it. Thing. If I rotate it now, this will rotate from that point, right? Which is very much easy for me to do. It gives you a lot of like things which you can do with the tool, right? So for now let me keep it very center, right? Perfect. So the shortcut for this is basically when you select and this is gonna by the way happening a lot of time when you actually are doing it something from Figma. In fact, let's do this Figma only. For 1 second, let me do it Figma. Okay, I'll copy paste from Figma actually in a while, but whenever you try to copy paste any SVG from Figma, this sometimes have an issue of like moving that anchor point. So what you'll do, you press Command Y, select that thing. When you press Command Y, it says freeze active, right? And then you can move this, right? By dragging this X and Y handles you see, right? You can rotate it also, but I won't recommend you to rotate it. You can actually change it wherever you want. So when you press Command Y, it says freeze active and then escape or done. It's there, right? So now do it faster. Go to animate. This is my inactive, then home again. I want what I wanted to like do is basically I wanted this to see here is it's missing. So I'll this changes to here done. So I want this home to change the color, right? And usually that's where from where we'll start, right? We wanted to change the color for this home from active to inactive. What we wanted to do is basically we wanted to change the stroke color, and there's no fill, by the way. Let me actually enable fill white and make it bottom, and we should not actually use this. Okay, let me change it to dark only. Perfect. So there are two keyframes with this. Door have a stroke and house exterior has a fill and a stroke. You can change it also name, but let's say first fill. I don't want you to basically keyframe here. You see here one frame keyframe selected. This is home inactive. Press play. This is what you see. Okay, here's a pro tip. Design mode and animate mode have a very different properties, right? So if I go back to design mode, no, you see this. And when I go to animate mode, you see something like this. So it's ideal. The ideal property, the ideal workflow should be whatever you wanted to change in terms of your animation, try to first change it into design because otherwise it will look like this. But anyways, we have already defined a keyframe. So this is for home inactive. There will be gray. Then again, I'll duplicate it because I don't want to like change it to this is home active. And then I want this to be white and the background to be blue. And this the outer to be also be the stroke to be also be white, which will not look it will not, you won't be able to see it. So let's do one thing. Let's make it gray. Copy this thing one and then make this also the door to be also gray. Perfect. Go to state machine. Again, what we're gonna do, we're gonna be dragging the active state, drag down the arrow, tap it here. We want to do this animation to be 350 millisecond, and this interpolation should be like this one. Go back, go again back. The animation should be 300 ms for going back. Animation should be like similar. Again, we have to create inputs. So here actually we can do actually also very simple thing. Last time so choosing, I think I've seen it. I did a workshop back like I think 2 weeks back. Choosing your input is also very important, by the way, guys. So we have used triggers. Trigger is basically it fires once and then it doesn't hold its value. We can actually change for this particular case, and I think we can do this also. That we can use Boolean also. How many of you know Boolean, by the way? State what Boolean is input means. I think majority of people actually know exactly about Boolean. So it's like is active. So it actually holds a 0 and a 1 value. I think I and I'm gonna actually use this in for this particular use case. We'll say if is active is true. So I'm actually creating a check. Whenever I start from this frame, I wanted to see the value. What's the current state of this particular home icon is. It says if is active means if it's active. If it's true, take me to this home active state, or else tap what it in here. If is active is false, take me there to the previous state. So I actually created a simple logic. So in previous one we have created multiple triggers, like 2 triggers and 2 listeners, and in here we created a input which is called Boolean, because we wanted to say get only one value, right? Whether it's true or false, right? So say it's active, play. So right now in console it says, hey, home entry, home inactive, and we are at home inactive, right? So now go back to is active, and it moves to this state. It says home inactive to home active, and it's vice versa, right? But it's very boring right now. I feel like it's very simple and it's very boring, and okay, it's active and active. But right now if I'm able to tap, I'm not able to tap it in here, and because there's no listener we have assigned right now. So what we're gonna create is gonna create a listener which is called on tap, and this time we'll say a target of this is my group on click, and when I click is root. The best part about it is you can actually toggle it. Am I going fast, guys? By the way, do let me know if like it's perfect. Perfect. So what happens is like toggle. So usually last time we had used 2 triggers and 2 listeners, because those were like all triggers, like single fire inputs. This time actually I used 1 listener and 1 input, because I am using a 1 true and a false state. And in one listener, I can get actually toggle in between, right? So what toggle means is basically if the value is true, make it false. And if the value is false, make it true, right? On tap of group, whenever I click on group, I want this input to toggle in between, right? So if I press play again and I press tap on group, it says there's actually a tick now. It made it true. When I tap it back, it's set to fall, move back to the home screen, right? So far, so good understanding, guys. Some people actually said they don't know understand the toggle and true and false thing. So basically, in Figma, we only have like triggers, right? You can only tap, and it's basically one time firing event happens, and that's where the animation plays, right? And that's where it becomes very important. And I think that's where the USP of this particular tool is. Basically, can actually create these inputs because they act like a check. So for example, if I give you a simple experience from my point of view, it's basically says, so we all of us actually create design based on state, right? We have use cases, right? Hey, if it's a first time user, and if show him this screen. If it's second time user, don't show him this screen, right? So for that, actually, I'll show you in a while. It makes sense to create state machine where I just wanted to skip it for that user. So that's where this input makes sense, right? Right now we are just like taking it for just for the single input. But when we create a journey, right? When we create like a multiple journey in Figma, what you have is like you have to create multiple state, right? Multiple timelines for that, right? You have to like create, okay, this is this flow, and this is this flow, and this is this flow. And for example, sometimes you only have a little small journey change, but for that you need to create multiple two actually keep two prototypes, right? In here you can actually create this as a flag and create a timeline and then create a state machine, and it takes you and skips based on what kind of a logic you have made. I know it sounds a little bit complicated, but don't worry. Actually, I created one interaction for ET Money back in 6 months back, and I'll show you how it's gonna make sense, right? So this is actually one listener, one input, and this actually gives me a simple animation, right? Okay, it's good, but I wanted to make it a little bit more a jazzy. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is basically right now I'm in inactive state. Uh, I'm sure a lot of people of you might have seen the Cred's bottom navigation update back in 2022 where they have kept this fake 3D kind of house, right? So let's try to actually get it like make with this particular piece. So what we're gonna do is basically right now we go back to the design mode, which is ideal. And let me actually create this door, house exterior, make it solid white, make it little gray. I think let's say A4, A4, A4. Let's make it A4, A4, A4. Perfect. This is two shapes, 1 and 2. So now let me do one thing. Let me create this, duplicate this one. And that's where it becomes like a little fun that this is house. Change it to make it fill and then remove this, make it, let's make it gray, actually this gray. You don't see it right now here because, but this is actually below the, this house exterior layer, right? So now I want this to be visible, how exterior, when on the inactive state, I want this house fill to be not visible, right? But, so this is actually the shape I already have created. Go back to the design mode, always do that. Go to animate mode. Now you see this here, right? So now here we'll do a little bit of path animation, right? In all of this, in all of this particular icon, right? What I'm going to do is basically I'm going to be like, okay, when I tap on this particular layer and I tap, it says key all vertices, which is very important, by the way. This is actually a path. I'm actually doing it like I'm giving all the key, I'm giving like creating keyframes on all those path. So see, made this path and there are actually multiple vertices and they all have some value, right? So if you see there's a position X and a Y here, there's a position of X and a Y here, this, and this. That's one for this path. Go back to the door. This is actually for house exterior. Make sure that you have done. So now I'll go back to the house fill. I do the same thing. House tap. Okay, wait. Tap. Edit vertices. Key all vertices. Tap it. Do you see it here? Done. It's there. Key all vertices. Done. This is house fill. This house. Now here's the catch, right? That's why when I wanted to do, that's why I duplicate this keyframes. Basically, I don't want to go back and then create a new timeline and then forget some kind of I missed a keyframe or something like that, right? So I usually what I'll do, I'll basically go to this state and I try to duplicate it, because when I duplicate it, all those keyframes actually remains there, right? It's similar to what renaming not. So when you do auto animate, if you change the layer of from the left one, it goes to fade mode, right? Arrive is similar. If you change one or try to forget, or if you forget one keyframe in the first frame, it does some kind of weird thing. But anyways, let's do one thing. In this one, we had a door. I think I have door. Okay, wait. I haven't done path animation in. Okay, wait. See here. See, I've missed something right here. Go back. This is inactive. And path. I do key all vertices. It's there. Yeah, I can see vertices. I have done it here also. On active, also I'm gonna do key all keyframes, path, vertices. Perfect. So now what I want to do is basically I wanted to make it look like it's 3D, right? So what I'm gonna do is on the active state, I'm gonna do a little bit trickery here. So I'm gonna be making it as a little bit left, 1, 2, 3, a little bit left. Too much. It's there. Don't judge the. I'm doing it really fast, so I'm not gonna make it very perfection. 1, 2, 3. There, a little bit there. And when I go back here, tap. I want to make it feel like this is actually a little bit there, that's there. And then, so I'm eyeballing it, guys. It's not exactly very, like realistic in terms of the perspective, but I'm just giving you an example of how fast you can iterate on this. So this is one state, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes what I do is like when I actually feel like, okay, I might have made a mistake, I try to add a path in here and I go back and then reverse it, the whole process, right? So I realize that, oh, I should have added one more, keyframe in this particular case. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be like reverse engineering this one. So this actually I made it. This is all my keyframes there. I wanted to make it this. This is actually a little bit, okay, wait, let me select the house fill path. Let me do a little bit more. So if
It's
I play
little bit
this
to the
one, you'll understand
bottom.
why actually I'm saying this is renaming it better. So if I play, no, this is not the case one. This is home active. Let me keep it this way. A home, this is a small one. This is actually 3D one. Let's take it here. Delete, press play, delete. See, this is what's happening right now. Let's make it 500 ms. See, there's the problem, right? You're understanding what's happening, right? This looks really, really bad because I have added one keyframe later in this. So I missed one point. So what I'm going to do is basically I'll try to go into active. I'll delete the rest of one. Delete, go back to this. This is my active. So I'll try to reverse engineer this. Delete. This is my active. So for this active state, I want this to be okay. Let me make it blue. Okay, let me make it black. Okay, well, let's do whatever. Like be blue. This to be this. And for this particular thing, let's do A4, A4, A4. No, let's do A. So I'm going to duplicate this again, but then I'm going to make it inactive. So all I'm going to do is basically change it back to the previous state. So it's again manual, a little bit manual task. So door was in the center. So this is there. Perfect. The house was also there. And then I want this to be invisible. So I'm going to do is basically I'm going to like hide it in the behind this so that it won't be visible when you actually go to the inactive state and make it actually white, make it actually this little gray. This is also a little gray. I mean, so how I usually do is basically I do it. Basically, there's supposed to be a frame, but actually I keep it as for a reference. But for this particular case, let's say if I press tab, there's no state here, so I have to again go to active. This is actually up to again it goes first to the inactive state, takes back to the there, and then make it 350 ms, and then go back to the, let's not make it. So this is how it's gonna appear, right? It's really bad, but you understand it a little bit. You can go back to the state. So far, so good, guys. I mean, I know it's not, some people will say it's not a product designer job, and I think some people say, oh, it doesn't actually, it comes in like for graphic people and that, but it's the same as, it's similar to like, so whatever I showed you, right? And I think, it's the same logic will apply for a product designer role, right? So I'm assuming like some of people might get okay, wait me, let me create a simple Figma file, and how usually happen is, do I have a design? Do I have any design? Anyways, I think let me show you exactly how actually I think, right? So I have made this very, one second, why people actually ask people do so I made like 2-3 files for this to showcase where you usually use Rive for, right? So, I mean, last time actually somebody from small case came, right? And I think there's actually very good interaction, which we usually see in there's a website called 60 FPS, right? So I made the same thing logical ways. I've made this progress bar. And I think when I was telling you the guys like where you should use Rive as a product designer, right? Is basically when you wanted to add complex, if you wanted to add simple animation also, but you don't have that bandwidth, or you just wanted to test it before publishing it and giving it to your developers, you can actually get it, you will be able to actually test it and then see it also, right? So for example, I made this simple progress bar, investment bar, where actually I made this first state, this is a fill state, and I'm just like changing it based on the number it will get, right? So this is actually a simple blend state, but the idea is when I press play and if I go to number, and this is 100 already kept there, and if I start putting it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? This is basically based on your number, the whole thing is changing, right? How many of you actually are aware about like this type of perfect. So this is actually how I use this. That's the reason actually of why and how using Rive is, because you can actually export this thing and keep it into any of the I mean, you can do it with Framer and Webflow also, but I usually do it for mobile actually. So that's why a lot of time actually I end up creating experimentations on Rive. So what I did is basically I just had a simple line bar in here, and in here actually I use a progress bar. In that progress bar I had, so this is actually nothing but a stroke, right, which you don't see it, and I added a trim path here. So you see this is actually a simple trim path here. It's simple 0 stroke, and inside the second one, and this is very important, this is actually simpler, again, like made it 80%, because 80% is the place where actually I wanted to after this I don't want this to actually move ahead. Now in this one, I mean, I would love to show you in the other section, but this actually I've added a blend state, right? In that blend state, what blend state is basically, it takes your first animation or your first entry point or keyframe, and then it asks you to blend this state in between with a number in place, right? So in this one, if I have to give you example, I want this timeline or this animation to happen on a progress. When I press or when the number is 100, it stays in the first state, and as I move till a 900, it completed the whole animation. So the idea is like, and this is a new thing also. This is a data binding feature actually I used for this one. I created a score number. Usually you used to give you in the input part, but this time actually Rive introduced this feature called view models or data binding. In there, actually I made a score as a number instance there, and I used it as an input here. So it takes the number and it takes that number, and actually it's using the same number with in the middle also, in this one also. And then when I press play, so whatever I'm gonna use it as a number, the animation will the state will change. So now the use case would be you give it to a developer, and developer will get kind of a score somewhere from some database, and all he has to do is basically just pass this number, whatever number he's getting, to this score. So the whole animation will be actually taken care of with this Rive file, right? That's actually the reason actually I use Rive, and I think that's what you should also use Rive for, because a lot of time, in fact, for this I've given you example of Rive of Paytm also, right? We sometimes what happens is like we have developers saying no to us, and there must be some issue with the not enough bandwidth. Yes, you can use it for dashboard as well. Some developers saying like oh, this is not possible, and sometimes like they say, oh, it might take a while also, like it will take 2 3 4 days, right? So this is really a solution for that. I want you to also think about like efficiency part. So when I created this and I give it to a developer, he can use it with ease. You just have to export the whole thing, and then it just like change the whole score thing. Simple example of this would be like I've made this brightness bar. You guys might have seen it actually in somewhere in the social media I posted it. This is a simple brightness bar I made for the from the Apple thingy. When I press play, it's there. All I have to do is control, and I have to give the number, or you get number from somewhere, like you drag it based on where you change the animation, right? So if you see, if I do simple sound bar, I just change it to sound bar changing in between. So let's say simple sound bar, and I also use brightness bar, right? And you can give it to a developer, and it can get implemented as straightforward as it is. So all the animation, all the logics I have been able to like do it in here. That's why Rive is so powerful, is because you won't be able to do it in Figma or with that ease. And in After Effects, it becomes like an animation. So it plays, and then it shows you, rather than you can feel it here, and then you can test it here. So that's the whole thing I actually use Rive for, and I think it's very powerful. The view model and the logics, for example, the console part, if I say, so you see console part, if I'm actually showing, see this is 25 to 35. There are actually some triggers I made it, and hopefully you guys, I think this is one of the thing which actually I would want you to showcase. Shivam, should we do Q&A? One second, I forgot to tell you exactly one simple
Hi,
last
yes.
showcase.
Let's begin that. Just give me a
Which will be
second.
actually useful for you, as because you're all product designers. So this is something I actually did for ET Money. And why this is actually very important is because a lot of people actually might be thinking why we actually using it Rive, because we can use Figma, right? So if you see, this is actually a simple onboarding. I think it's still live. I'm not sure it's still live or not. So you see, this is how a real use case scenario would look like, right? You see a lot of inputs there on the bottom. There's a lot of this. So whatever, when you see circle, there's actually trigger. Whenever you see this checkbox, it's your boolean, right? And you see this is actually very big state machine kind of a thing, right? So let me show you exactly why actually I use this. So we removed this one. We removed this one actually from the live version, but ideally it was supposed to start from here. So if I wanted to, let's play it here. You see the animation was supposed to be, I created it thinking about it'll take a while to load. I made this animation and it moves to this state, right? The first enter. The best part about this is if I wanted to test it out, this particular case with people versus this, all I have to do is basically create a check, and then things will be starting like from this or that. So now if I delete this and I remove this from entry to the first enter, if I press play, it starts from here. It's as simple as it is of like simpler to creating like interactions in Figma, but all I have to do is basically do a little bit changing of the arrows, and my whole animation file will be the same. I have to only have to replace it, or let's say this Rive file I have to replace it. So let's say, so I have for this one, if you see this one, right? So I landed it here. Loading is done. So loading is done to investment. Tap it here. It goes to investment. For the next state, again, it goes to this state. It's moving. Then proceed to bottom navigation. Perfect. Proceed to KYC. Perfect. And then open KYC. And then back to KYC. So you're getting it, right? So it's very easy. I mean, I could exactly embed this same thing in code. So I'm not sure. I might have actually have. I'm not sure that maybe I have this file because I'm using this a different laptop. But I can actually go and this exactly export this Rive file and put it in SwiftUI, and I don't have to do anything. All those inputs and checklists will automatically will be there. So this is the purpose when I actually wanted to do A/B testing. I wanted to test it to my stakeholder, and I don't want like my engineers to get involved first, and I wanted to understand also the control key, how much easing it will be better, right? And that's why you tools like Rive I use it, right? So for example, if I go back to proceed, just proceed, whatever you see is there will be visible on the console, right? So it's always have for me it's always like I wanted to create, like whenever I wanted to like do some little bit out of the box thinking and I don't want people to involve, like specifically engineers, and I wanted to do it faster, that's where I use Rive. And see, these are all listeners I've used it. So in a real world scenario, this is how people actually use Rive for. Well, like whatever I showed you, like the arrow and everything, it actually is built on that. So that's why I wanted to make it very, very basic. And I hope this actually is gives you a little bit more clarity on how to use the tool. That's it, guys.
Great. We can do the Q&A now.
No, no, I
Q&A
no, no
now.
screen share.
Do
Yeah.
you don't have the screenshot on, Vikas, or so guys, what you can do is that if you click on the chat or just press C on the keyboard, you will see the Q&A thing on the top next to the poll result. You can start writing your questions, and everyone can vote on the question. You can either use, you have an emoji there, so you can just use a thumbs up or +1. That way, the questions which is get the highest, emojis, we can start with them, which will just make them common. So I'm just waiting for them right now. Let's wait 2 minutes, and then we can begin the Q&A.
And I understand, guys. This is actually a very. I mean, it's like making it possible in our time. Because itself it's like a very big tool. It might take 3 hours or 4 hours to you understand the whole. If I start like from scratch, it'll take 4 3 or 4 hours to get even. I think that's less time because. But I would want you guys to start with the basics. Basics is the one actually you should actually focus on. And yeah, anything.
Yeah.
Not yet actually.
Yeah, so
I
I'll
mean,
start with the
there's
first
no.
one.
I mean, why do you
Can
wanted
we
to like
export the
do
RIVE
it with
file into
the
Figma?
Figma actually? So you can actually do it in Framer, not in Figma. I'm not sure if it's possible or not, but I usually don't want it because I think I could be. Figma doesn't have the render. I don't know what exactly is the status on that, but no, right now the question is no, it's not possible.
Yeah.
No, no,
How
no. You
does
just
that look
copy
like? And
paste it.
and what about the vice
Yeah. So
versa?
just
How do
you
we
have to like
export
go
the
and
files
on the
from
right
Figma
side
to
of.
RIVE? Is there a plugin
So
for
you just
that, or
click
how?
on the frame you wanted to select, and then click on. I think I could show you exactly this one. I forgot it, but you right click on Figma file, and then you select copy as SVG or copy as PNG. I mean, it could be a very different session also together, but I mean, it's very strategic to copy paste from Figma in Rive because something
Yeah.
you wanted to create as an image and something you
Mm.
wanted to create as a SVG. But I usually do is like I right click on the Figma file, and then or a particular piece you wanted to like copy paste is basically right click on that, select as SVG or copy as SVG, and just you paste it there in Rive, and you'll see. I think let me actually show you
Mm.
exactly this one. One second. I think let me share the screen first.
So
Can you see it? So for example, I did one interaction where actually I wanted to like, this, you might have guys have seen this one, right? So this is really a
yeah.
vector path I made. Or let me keep it this only. So this is a card frame actually I made in, let's say this is simple design I wanted to do. I just right click on this, go to copy as SVG, right? Tap it here, go back to Rive, and let me close this one. Go to, let's say, I could do it in this one, but go to new file, simple. And then and the asset, when tap on asset, and when I press Command V or Control V based on where you are, you start seeing it here. It's called paste it. Let's say this is card, and just have to drag and drop. And this is where the freeze, guys. This is where actually the keyframe point or the anchor point makes sense, right? When I press Command Y, it's always better to figure out how do you want to animate. So it's better to always make the anchor point in the center. So whenever actually I rotate it or move it, it'll be from the center. But you can change it also. Let's say if you wanted to like scale it down, done. And if I scale it down, start from the top. There's flexibility to it for sure. Guys, still able to were able to get it?
Hey, awesome. So I'll go to the
I think
next one.
so.
Um,
The basics part is
can you
actually the
share
one which actually
resources to
everybody should
learn
go
RIVE
about,
in
right?
depth?
I feel like it's very underrated. People actually have asked like, they go and find the courses on like they're like 30,000, 40,000 rupees courses. I haven't, to be honest, I have never actually taken any other course apart from going to and see the Rive 101. So I have always told people who have wanted to understand and learn Rive in depth is to get the basics right. And once you're able to get the basic right, you'll be able to understand it. I think sometime I use Chat GPT or Claude type tools where to just like get the logic right. Hey, I wanted to make this. How do I even go about it, right? And the whole idea is they'll tell you exactly to create a state machine, to create a input listener, or so it's already there in the so the basics. If you when you be able to get the basic right, and if you really are very much interested, their live streams are really good. I have been watching their live streams from 2022 to, I mean, God knows, 24 late. So 1.5 years of live stream they had done is really good. And so they have created like a simple, like, there's a couch one also, and there's so much value there actually. So you don't need to actually go and find courses. In fact, if you wanted to looking for a specific output, that's what courses give you. But let's say if I tell you something to think from the scratch, you might get lost. So you go again, start looking at another solution, right? So it's better to get the logic, the basics right, and then from there you usually start going into the depth.
Hmm. Makes sense. I agree with that. So Saurabh is asking, like we can do the same thing you did in the ET Money app in the Figma, and which might be
So
easier for some
what
people who
happens
are
is
good in
like when you
Figma.
create something in
Then why should
Figma,
we use Rive
right?
for the same if we
Uh,
can have the
a
same
developer
results with
has to
Figma?
go and then create those again as taking this as a reference, right? And I believe so. Let me give you this way: if you are building a mobile and you have less time, or let's say you wanted to like that whole interface to get it done faster, I'll use it. And the fun part about this is the value would be whatever you get right from the Bezier curve will be the developer will be able to exactly copy paste that, and the handoff part will become easier, right? And even if developers like have like problem like, hey, I don't have time or whatever, he can exactly import the whole Rive file. The whole flow would be there. It'll as simple as like, you can exactly get the whole layout with interaction there, so that the developer don't have to recreate it, right? So let's say you can do it in Figma, but Figma, and then from my experience, it lacks a little in terms of when you do a little heavier prototyping, right? The assets, when the assets become heavier, the interaction start feeling a little choppy. And I've done it by myself. So if it's like 2 or 3 frames animation, it's there, or interaction is there, it's better. But when you go from like, let's say 4 state or 5 state or 6 state, right, it start getting choppy, and it's again as a reference thing, right? So you can definitely, create that interaction with the Figma, but I chose to do it in Rive because I realized that for that I really wanted to like my user to feel that how smoothly it's gonna come, right? And I don't wanted to test it out. And there's use cases still I have already defined, right? So I just wanted to like show it to people, and that's why I did it in Rive. You can definitely like do it in Figma, but again, someone has to uh, create the the whole
Mm.
design and code, and it becomes like a heavy process.
Okay.
Sorry,
So
what?
next one, did you import the designs from Figma or you create it in the Rive itself?
No, no, no. So actually,
So did you import
so
the
I use
designs from
Figma for
Figma, the one
designing
you were
all my
making
assets
right now,
because
or
I'm so
you
used to
create it
it
in
and
the
it's
Rive?
faster. So because anyways I have to like sometimes so I have a liberty if I wanted to get it developed. I have already
Hmm.
made it in Figma with auto layouts and everything. So I also use Play sometimes for interaction. So I choose like sometimes whether what part of this interaction I wanted to do it in Drive or versus I wanted to do in code, right? So it
Hmm.
becomes really complicated because I've been like doing it for 10 years and I can understand where I wanted to use it. So that's where it. But yes, most of the thing that whatever I'm designing it from Figma.
So while handing over
So
the designs,
as I
do you
was
give
telling you, right,
Figma
guys,
and Rive files
I only
separately?
used
How do you
once
combine
actually
both
the
together?
Rive file for the layouting part, and then which was a very special use case where I wanted to like show it something like faster, and if I have to iterate it, I don't want to go back and then change a lot of things. So for iterating and reiterating is becomes like where I actually use Rive for. Uh, I still like use I give Figma. I still keep Figma because let's say if I wanted to like get it developed in other platform, right? So for only so SEO is becomes an issue when actually I'm designing something on mobile. I like do it in Figma, and I choose which part I wanted to do in Rive. So like there's a some micro interaction issue I wanted to do, I do it in Rive and I give it like a lottie, right? Whereas then if I wanted to do like a simple layout animation and it doesn't have to, be coded into the application, I do it in Rive. I mean, it's just like it's my choice of how much I wanted to integrate Rive in. But ideally,
Hmm.
if I have to do it, I usually like use my interaction and those graphs which I actually showed you, right? Or animation or progress bar. I do it with Rive, and then again, still like I use it in Figma, and again develop development
Hmm.
can take from there only.
And how do you decide which input or listeners
What do you
to
mean by inspiration for
use
what?
for
Like,
a
oh,
project?
I'm not
And
understanding it.
how
Can
do
you
you
like
usually take inspiration for your Rive projects? Yeah, I
elaborate
mean,
what?
I assume Shriram is asking the one is asking question is that first, how do you decide which input or listeners to use for a project? That's the first part. Second is
Mhm.
that when you're making these animations in
Okay, okay.
Rive,
So the
how do
first one,
you
let me give you
like
answer
get
for the first one.
inspired? Like,
How
mood
do you
board. We create a mood
actually
board before making it.
define
So
what kind of an
that part I
input
think.
you
Yeah.
want, right? It's simple. So let's say if you wanted to take a state, like let's say, hey, for example, we all are product designers. So let's say if I wanted to create state that this person has done onboarding, or let's say have inputted, like already inputted the numbers there, or let me like simplify this actually experience. So trigger I use when actually I wanted to have like a single tap, like kind of a behavior somewhere. So that's where I use trigger for. Trigger actually sometimes create multiple. I have to create multiple triggers for some state, right? So it's very smartly if you want so you have to go very deep in terms of understanding the inputs. I mean, it's always comes with practice. Wherever I wanted to only have a simple flag, I only wanted to like have a tap, I use triggers for. And then when actually I wanted to like have like a hover state or something, I use these boolean. There's number also, but numbers actually now is redundant because there's actually the view model coming into the
Mm.
Drive update. It becomes a simple but actually I used one number input where actually I wanted to do any state, which is like a very different way of thinking from
Awesome.
in Rive. But yes, these two state would be definitely. And inspiration actually I mean it's like very natural. I could see something and I could see where I could make it, because I know After Effects. I've been a journalist from 2015, so I've designed on multiple platform and designed multiple thing as well. So it basically becomes like a second habit. Or let's say if you wanted to cook, if you have to do something on like a 3D interaction, I pick Rive, I pick After Effects and Blender. If I have to do something kind of so I have to do some kind of interaction where actually I would require some kind of input where I'll use Rive. I have also used XD if I don't want to get it implemented and I feel like okay, I could do it faster. I still use XD, right? So for prototyping related thing, I used like based on what I wanted to make. And
Mm.
inspiration is again like you look at whatever you can see like in terms of Twitter, and
Mm.
I like to recreate and reverse engineering things just to practice. Yeah, I
Awesome.
mean it's just like I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I look whatever feels interesting. I
Mm.
just try to practice it, and that's it.
Amazing. So is it better
What is banger? Sorry,
to
what again?
use
Running it.
Lottie in case of non-interactive animations like banner animation? Someone is asking.
Interesting. I think see, there's nothing wrong about Lottie.
Sorry,
I still
banner
like feel like
animation.
I've
Is it better to use
banner interaction
Lottie?
on Lottie, right? I mean, you do actually require After Effects, and you do actually can create Lotties, but I don't use it because I try to like create like my learning curve based on what's gonna be if I'm able to scale it or not. A Lottie actually I used to make it in After Effects. I still make sometimes, but I have stopped making it because in Rive you can actually also create stock images. Lottie doesn't actually gives you an ability to you can get an image inside that and you can create interaction. Right. So for example, you might have seen that interaction where this lady have made this dynamic what do you call it, Almira or sort. That's basically she dragged in images. Lottie doesn't give you that much. Liberty. You have to create vector path or vector, or you have to create everything in SVG, right? Which actually kind of is a drawback with Lottie. So that's why I choose Rive. But yeah, I think
Mm.
there's nothing wrong with the platform.
And also, does Rive make on-scroll animation that can be done on website easier to create?
Actually, I
On-scroll
mean, they have made
not
it really
suitable,
well.
but exactly
I
doable on
have
Figma.
not.
So
I
how
mean,
would you
I've
do it
tried
with
once. I
Rive?
might create one. I think I'll just show it to you guys, and then I'll put it on the in the community page. But somebody actually have made. I think there's a guy called Draws Good. They have made a scroll animation, and they implemented in Framer easier with compared to Figma. I feel like see, take as a very good design tool and design system tool.
Mm.
Prototyping. So if I have to give 10/10 on Figma to on designing on 10, and then
Figma,
I
I'll
say
still
design system on 10. But when it prototyping sucks, according to me. See, some people actually do really wonders, but for my kind of output, no, it lacks a while. So Rive is basically it gives you whole animation in this. So yes, it's possible, and it's not that hard. But I have made it once. I still have forgot it. I have to again rethink it. But yes, you can create scroll animation. I think they have created some library there in layout So you have to create, by the way, you have to create all layouts, and then there's actually logic to scroll animation. But yes, you can do it. It's not that hard, by the way.
Okay. And how do you showcase Rive on Figma or anywhere else? Rive for devs work, nice, but I
So I use
used to use
Play. If you're having,
MP4
by the way,
for
MacBook,
showcasing demos, but
let
the
me see
quality
exactly, show
drops
you
so much
exactly. I think
sometimes. Any
let me
turnaround for
show
this?
you Play. So I use Rive. There's another reason of me using Rive, and so I happen to like so been using a lot of tools, and I've spent so much time learning and the tool, and I've like spent so much time even creating prototypes, right? And it becomes like really pain because every 2 years we have to change the tool, right? So I don't want to like be in that position where I have to like change my workflows around all the time, right? So I've been looking out for these type of workflow for about 5, 6 years something. So I used to do in prototyping in Framer before the Framer used to be like Framer X, but it was you have to create code on React. So this Figma, Rive, Play, and Swift UI is basically this is a workflow I have locked in for. So I use Play. Let me show you exactly where the interaction is. This is the one. Let me share my screen first. Share screen. 1 second. Entire screen. There's this one. So this is actually I use Play for. So in this one, I had one created. I think I'm still like making it. This is the one. This is one. So here is this actually 1 second. This is actually a Rive file here in the bottom, right? This actually is a Rive file. 1 second. Bottom navigations. Yeah, this is actually a Rive file. If you see on the bottom. So when I press play here, this is what you see right now on the bottom. So this is really a Rive file on the bottom. This is actually, so this is how I actually showcase my thing when actually I'm designing something on mobile and I wanted to showcase somebody like this. I hope this answers the question. I think I just like, so I really like this to reverse engineering sometimes. So I'm still working on it. I think I broke the whole logic for the code. When I tap on cards, it goes to the card, which has actually been missing here. But yeah, this is actually my go-to workflow for like, so design something on Figma. And then if this is some kind of interaction, I make it, or let's say micro interaction, I make it in Rive. And then kind of a mix and match with Play. So this is, you see, this only part is actually Rive. This is actually simple like Play. I've made it like from copy pasted on from Figma. And again, this is actually a section where actually I copy pasted from again Figma. This is actually scroll view you can see, and then all of them actually coming into the landing page, and then that's how I show. I mean, simple. You can actually create a simple layout and then showcase also. Like the whole layout could come inside Play, and then you could showcase it. And I stop using MP4 as a showing it because it's not interactive, right? And when you're doing a product design, it's all about how does it feel, right? And I really am like a believer of design it not how it looks, but how it works and also how it feels. So I wanted to have that level of control of if I'm designing something, I need to see how it's feeling, right? So that's why I use this method, right? Yeah.
Hmm. Cool. So we can just take maybe one, two more questions and then we can wrap this up. It's been almost 2 hours now. So yeah, I have used Rive before, but one issue I faced was when trying to import shadows and effect like blur and layer blur from Figma. They didn't seem to carry over
So the
when
idea
importing.
is
So
that
do we need to recreate these
Figma. So
effects
there's a
manually in
technical
Rive,
constraint.
or is there a way
Yes. So
around to
Rive
import them?
Shadow
Yeah,
are
from Figma.
actually very different than Figma Shadow, right? So they have made their whole shadow in a very different logic, right? They use what do you call it? The feathering. The feathering actually is actually different logic. So that's why you have to like create it in Rive again. But the idea is like when I have what you can do is like basically try not to create the shadow in Figma, and then maybe later on you can go and then create shadows in Rive, because the logic is very different. They use a very different
Mm.
technical. If to go very technical, they actually kind of a pixelate the whole thing, and there's actually article in the domain. But yes, you have to recreate it again in Rive, the shadow part.
And
I
so I
think there
guess,
is a
have you
tool called
used
Phase. I'm not
Phase?
sure. I haven't
Okay, is there
tested
any
it out.
tool called Phase? Maybe he means play. I think I'm not sure. I also haven't heard about that, honestly. So I think we have answered most of the questions. So this is great.
Same.
We can wrap this up now. So thank you so much, Vivek, Vikas, for the session. It was really amazing, and it's been 2 hours with the demos and questions. It was really helpful. So we can do that again in the future, right? And if people here can switch on the camera, I would love to take a screenshot of also. So please switch on the camera, guys. Yep, others also. It will be great if you can open the camera just for a one photo. One. Yep. Okay. Few more cameras. Awesome. Great. So thank you so much again, Vikas, for this. It was lovely having you. And thank you everyone for attending. Let's call it a day. Okay. Bye bye.